Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon is here. We're going to talk about Game 7 of Nuggets Wolves. We're going to talk about Game 7 of the Knicks and Pacers. We're going to talk Game 6, Dallas and Oklahoma City. And then we're going to break down Zaccharie Risacher's 28-point breakout game in the French League playoffs. It's a packed show. We're super excited. But now, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? Man, we had a couple game sevens here on Sunday, an exciting game 6 on Saturday. We have the conference finals all set in both conferences. It's a good time for NBA playoffs. We can really get into NBA draft stuff. We're almost a month away from that now. So Hoops is always delivering good content for us, Sam.
I think we're basically at the point now where with only one series per night, we're going to be able to talk off-season stuff. We're going to be able to talk draft. We're going to get into like what this show does super well. But first, before we do that, we have to talk about the playoff series that ended yesterday and today. We're going to start with the game that actually just ended half an hour ago. Man, an unbelievable series, I thought. Minnesota and Denver. Unbelievable drama. Unbelievable competitive like energy from both teams in this series, I thought. I loved every second of the series. I know that the games weren't always wildly competitive, but the unpredictability of what was going to happen on a night-to-night basis because of that crazy competitiveness and because of just not knowing what teams were going to show up on what night, what players were going to show up on what night, it felt so drama-packed every single time that we turned the series on. It was just it was an incredible set of games, it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, and tonight gave us everything we wanted. At one point, I'm like, man, shoot, we may be recording early. Like, if nothing else, even if we wait till the end of the game, that's not going to be a long, drawn out into the game, all of that. And I'm going to get to bed, by 11 instead of midnight. And then all of a sudden, the Wolves, like, to their credit, man, just make this comeback. And it was like, okay, are they going to, sometimes you waste all your energy on that. The Nuggets threw a one punch back, and then the Wolves just kept coming. And I know we'll talk about all of this stuff. Some of the offensive rebounding and second chance opportunities they created were big time. And after a really quiet first half, got it going in the second half. I thought he was really good distributing the ball. And then he kind of found his groove and started making shots. And then quite frankly, some of the Nuggets guys just didn't show up. They really struggled in this series. And, I think you tweeted it out. The Wolves deserve to win this. This wasn't a series like some of the others where injuries or other things necessarily. Yeah, Jamal Murray has some stuff, right? But everybody has some stuff right now. For the most part, everybody's playing. The Wolves came out on top in 7. Credit to them and their resilience throughout the whole series and this game in particular.
This series was all about resilience to me. And it was all about when you got kicked in the teeth, how you responded to that. You never know, especially with younger teams, right, how they're going to respond when they get punched in the face. With Minnesota, I think it's hard to say that any team that is that young with like a leader that's 22 years old, like Anthony Edwards is, and frankly, with like Karl Anthony Towns being their third best player, let's call him second best player, whatever you want to say, not having had a lot of playoff experience that was positive, you just don't know how those situations are going to go. And I think Minnesota deserves an immense amount of credit for how they responded when they got knocked down. They go up 2-0 in this series. It would have been easy for Denver to just roll over and die. Denver comes back and obliterates them in what game 3 or game 4, I can't remember, and gets the series back to 2-2. They get it to 3-2 in game 5 in Denver. Would have been easy for Minnesota to roll over. They don't. They get it back to Denver. Denver goes up 20 in game 7, 58-38 in the second half. And it would have been so easy for Minnesota to roll over. And they just methodically chipped it back, brought it back, played really high level defense, went on a 20-3 run at one point in the middle of the third quarter. It was just such an impressive professional performance, I thought, from Minnesota. And we'll talk about Denver here momentarily, but the thing that just really stood out to me was the energy in the defense. I thought it was absolutely unbelievable how well conditioned Minnesota was. And this is what you get for being a deep team. And again, we'll talk about that with Denver here momentarily, but Minnesota has the 6th man of the year in Naz Reid. They have Nickeil Alexander-Walker coming off the bench, who has been super helpful. Monte Morris hasn't been like incredible in the series, but he's been able to play minutes occasionally. Kyle Anderson, they're able to go to a 7-man rotation. Essentially, Kyle Anderson only played 4 minutes in this game. Part of why they're able to go to a 7-man rotation, in my opinion, in game 7 is because they bought up all of those minutes earlier in the playoffs by having Naz Reid be able to play a bunch, Kyle Anderson being able to step in and play, Monte Morris, acquiring him at the deadline, just being able to like utilize him occasionally, Nickeil Alexander-Walker being great. Having that depth allows you to continue to roll over. And that's going to be a bit of a theme throughout this podcast, especially when we talk about the Knicks. The Knicks just got like incredibly unlucky on some level too. But I do think that Indiana was the fresher team in game 7. When you get into these long series and these long playoff runs, being the fresher team matters. And it felt like to me, Minnesota was the fresher team. And stamina is a skill, in my opinion. Motor is a skill. Conditioning is a skill. There was no player out there on that court, in my opinion, tonight, for his size that looked in better condition than Rudy Gobert was.
Yeah, and listen, I know you tweeted about this with the Nuggets, but they went through a whole playoff run last season, all the way to the championship. We talked going back to the start of the year, Sam, about their depth and how much, they had or did not have, and when would that come back to haunt them a little bit. And this would be part of a bigger conversation, but we talk about 82 game players and 16 game players. I think there's a place on some of these teams for 82 game players who just bring energy and eat up minutes and maybe get buckets during the regular season. So some of these guys don't have such a load throughout the entirety of the season. And then they're completely worn down by the playoffs. When we did the offseason previews for the Lakers and the Warriors, we talked about this with Steph and LeBron and how worn down they already were. And so I think that is something that some of these teams have to consider moving forward. Is the Nuggets, like essentially every game all year, Jokic and Murray, and you got to rely on who's the guy coming in off the bench that can just get you buckets or bring a ton of energy. And then you get in the playoffs and that's going to shrink, obviously. And we saw that for them where did Peyton Watson. He didn't play very many minutes at all in this series, I don't believe. Yeah. Christian Brown was solid. Reggie Jackson gave him some minutes here and there, but we talked about depth, and eventually it kind of came up where, Karl Anthony Towns is in foul trouble tonight, Sam, and 6th man of the year, Naz Reid comes in. He's playing great defense again. He's getting offensive rebounds. He's bringing energy, and that's just a luxury that, quite honestly, the Nuggets don't have.
And this is where roster construction comes in, and I think it's worth discussing that a little bit. On some level, with the way that the game was officiated and allowed to be adjudicated with more physicality involved, right? This is something that really played into Minnesota's hands. We talked about it. It's something that I felt like played into Oklahoma City's hands there for a minute until it didn't against Dallas. Certainly, I think that Minnesota, though, is the team that has gotten the most juice out of this. And part of that is that when games are played more physically, you have guys kind of, leaning on you and making contact and fouling you. It becomes tiring. These games that are super tight, they become more draining on some level, mentally and physically, right? Like that's a huge factor. Just mentally and physically, these games become really, really draining. And what I think what happened with Denver was You mentioned it. I mentioned it on Twitter. Denver felt the wear and tear of a 100 game season last year, 100 plus games, winning the title. Then, this offseason happens, right? Then we get into this season. They start, little bit, slowly, if I remember correctly. They get rolling eventually, finish third in the West, right? No, second in the West.
Second.
Minnesota's third in the West. Get home court advantage for this series. You would think that playing at elevation, they are a team that would be more inclined to be able to take advantage of teams getting tired and wearing down. But in reality, I do think that this is a situation on why it is so hard to repeat in the NBA. Having to play that many games, and on top of it, having this physicality that changed midway through the season, it completely altered the trajectory of this season, in my opinion. And I'm not complaining about it. I think it's the reality, and you have to play to the whistle, but it did change things. And when that happened, Denver's lack of depth really became a factor, in my view. This is a team that we talked about did not replace Bruce Brown in the offseason, right? Did not replace Jeff Green in the offseason. They were not as deep as what they were when they won the title last year. And it ended up really biting them when the playoffs got harder and harder and more physical and more difficult, because the wear and tear on these guys just became very real, it felt like to me. And that's a credit to Minnesota for not being able to wear down in that way. Anthony Edwards did not wear down. Rudy Gobert, and again, this is going to be we're going to have a long conversation on Rudy Gobert in this podcast because he was fucking outstanding tonight. Rudy Gobert, again, was like fresh on the court, ready to go. Them having three bigs that they felt like they could play 20 plus minutes was super, super helpful when compared to Nikola Jokic, who played all but 1 minute in this game.
Yep.
And that's part of the MVP, right? Like you're the MVP of the league. You never want to take them off the court. But when they're up 20, they had a window. Like they could have gotten him off the court and hopefully made him a little bit fresher going into the end of the game.
But this is part of the matchup and what the Wolves present, Sam, because all year when I would bring up depth, the first thing people would throw back in my face is, well, Aaron Gordon's the backup five in the playoffs. Aaron Gordon's the backup five in the playoffs.
But he wasn't. That's
not
the thing.
Not against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not against the Minnesota Timberwolves, Sam.
And last year, Jeff Green was the backup five, not Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
So it's just a totally different deal, in my opinion.
Yeah. And listen, I want to give Gobert and even, so we talk about long regular seasons, those guys played 35 and 34 minutes respectively during the regular season, both of them 79 and 76 games respectively as well. So those guys, it's not like those guys were we talk about depth, right? But it's not like those guys were able to coast all regular season either. Like it's just Ant is young and that's different. And he's just at a different level right now. And I know you want to give Gobert props whenever we get into this. That's a lot of minutes for somebody his size. And at the end of the day, you know what? When Gobert plays the way he did tonight and has the impact, he deserves his flowers because that dude takes more crap than any really good player in the NBA. When things, after game 2, when they blew him out and all of that, everyone's like, people would have traded Gobert for peanuts and just not played him anymore. The dude impacts the game. Now, are there some things offensively every once in a while? Sure. Defensively, was he a great matchup for Jokic? No, we already broke that down. Who is? But he's really good off the ball. He makes guys change their ideas when they're attacking the basket. He grabs rebounds. And to your point, he plays a lot of minutes and he does so at a high level because it doesn't seem like he wears down.
I think that's right. Gobert's best skill outside of just like rim protection is being in incredible condition and being able to run out games with a high motor. And that was the key at the end of it. He gets 2 massive offensive rebounds at the end of this game because Jokic can't elevate anymore after having played 45 of 46 minutes or 44 of 45 minutes at the end of this game. And Gobert buys them 4 extra points. And then this play here, I'm going to pull it up, and I feel like a little bit bad doing so. I mean, sort of, just because, it's not like KCP played well throughout this series and we're like cherry picking a result, but we're going to pull up this play, right? It's just so indicative of everything. So watch this one where Mike Conley is going to get by Michael Porter Jr. here. And, they just play it as if Michael Porter is going to be able to get back and contest because he's longer. They get the mini little help there from Jokic. But watch KCP right here, right?
Yep.
Watch KCP, who is switched on to Karl Anthony Towns. This is the exact epitome of like mental and physical exhaustion, right? KCP is a great defender. Like, he might make the all defense team this year. He is typically pretty conscientious at playing off ball defense, being locked in, being engaged. And he just stops and watches. He stops and watches the play. That's just like mental and physical exhaustion. And Karl Towns, who'd been on the bench for most of the fourth quarter due to foul trouble, and because Naz Reid was playing so well, he didn't have that tired. He was locked in. And he was able to go grab that offensive rebound, and that ended the game. That truly is the thing that finished the game.
And people always ask, what do you take away from the playoffs? What do you learn, especially when it comes to draft scouting? The next time we harp on a player's offensive rebounding and why it's so valuable, I want people to remember that clip. Or when we talk about Ron Holland at some point and take a deep dive, and I'm crushing him because I think he doesn't focus on weak side defensive rebounding and box outs, I want people to remember that clip, because it all plays into winning basketball. And, I sometimes people, you value rebounding too much. I'm like, it's a huge part of the game on both ends. If you can create extra possessions, or if you're giving up. There was another one, I think it was Aaron Gordon, Sam, on Naz Reid. So somebody drove, I don't remember who drove. Naz Reid came in from the weak side corner and he just flushed it, back with one hand. Yeah. I believe it was Gordon that missed it. Don't hold me to that. I didn't rewind to check, but there was multiple of those examples late in the game where the Nuggets guys just didn't make the rotations. They didn't get the box outs. They didn't stay engaged. Or to your point, they didn't have the legs to elevate high enough to go get it over whoever from Minnesota was.
And to me, again, I want to be very clear. This is not taking away from Minnesota what Minnesota did. This is a credit to Minnesota.
Because Anthony Edwards played all summer, Sam. Anthony Edwards went and played a whole bunch of extra minutes this summer.
100%. Anthony Edwards did not play well today. He went 6 for 24. He had 16 points. He had 7 assists, which was good. Like, he had one of his better distribution games, I felt like. But, like, he didn't have it tonight. And they won. They had a 28-point turnaround in the second half, and it was because of their defense and their offensive rebounding. It's truly it. Like, that's the reason to me.
And we should mention Jaden McDaniels real quick. Like, at least, like, he had 20 tonight, 3 of 4 from 3, free throw line, 7 of 10 overall. Obviously, we know what Jaden McDaniels brings defensively, but I just wanted to make sure we threw his name in there as well, because that's a huge performance.
By the way, as we're talking about this, Jaden McDaniels, 4 offensive rebounds tonight. Like, actually led the team in offensive rebounding tonight. He was so good in those last 2 games for Minnesota. He was unbelievable. He had 21 in game 6. He was huge tonight. I felt like, even while guys like Jamal Murray were getting off, and like defensively, he ended up having like a decent amount of that matchup, not a crazy amount, because Denver did a pretty good job trying to get cross matches with Jamal and other guys. But they deserve Jaden McDaniels deserves a ton of credit. I think Mike Conley, didn't play an enormous basketball game by Mike Conley's standards. I thought Mike Conley's presence out there is just enormous for Minnesota, because it takes so much off of Anthony Edwards' plate from a distribution and playmaking perspective. And again, like Naz Reid's emotional and like mental fortitude after Denver kind of kicked the shit out of Naz Reid for 3 or 4 games, the last few. Basically, since game 3, Denver had really figured it out on Naz Reid. And man, he played so well in that fourth quarter. and was a huge reason why they won. He had that tip back. He had the 3 that he made. Like, it was just an enormous fourth quarter from Naz Reid. Just a fantastic game from Minnesota, and they deserve all the credit. And to me, like, Denver, look, they drafted all these old guys last year, hoping that they'd be able to enter the rotation from day one. They draft Julian Strawther, Hunter Tyson, Jalen Pickett. And I understood the strategy behind that. They were hoping that one of those guys would be able to play minutes, kind of like Ben Shepherd is right now for Indiana.
Yeah.
However, my thing at the time as well was, I like the strategy. I don't like the execution.
Sure.
I don't think Jalen Pickett is very good, frankly. I thought Hunter Tyson was like kind of interesting where they took him. And I thought Julian Strawther like was an interesting shooter. And if I was Denver, I would have him a little bit higher on my board than where I had him. But I still had Julian Strawther, I think, at like 40 on my board, and they took him in the first round. So getting something from those guys next year is a big thing. Peyton Watson, you mentioned him earlier, him being unable to play really in this series, frankly, because the problem is there's like a little bit of overlap between him and Christian Brown in terms of just being non-shooters.
Yep.
They need one of those, or at least like Christian isn't a non-shooter. He's a guy that like teams will leave open.
Yeah.
Right. They need one of those guys, and hopefully both of them, to keep developing and really become shooters. But, they need to keep getting something from their young guys. That's the key.
Yeah, no, that's with the guys off the bench for them. Christian shot 38% from 3 on the season or something like that, but it's just 2 attempts. So he's not a volume guy. And I think he does a really good job. I think he defends, he's competitive, all of those things. But you're right. In a playoff series, it's hard to play both of those guys. And so it makes you like, how do you build the roster out with both of them? If they're if those are your 2 bench wings, is that in the regular season, it may work okay, but come playoffs, you need someone. They had nobody to really space the floor off the bench in those situations. And when Michael Porter Jr. is struggling the way he did throughout this series,
a good point.
Yeah, when he's struggling the way he did throughout the series, who's the guy that comes in and spaces the floor for that team? They could not. I mean, honestly, you know who it was? Like Justin Holiday is who they were trying to have do it. That was their best answer, was Justin Holiday, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful of Justin Holiday. And then also, like Aaron Gordon wasn't great tonight, Sam. Like he had, what was it, 4 straight games? I think he started in game 2, even though they lost. He played pretty well, had a few big games, was making crazy shots. And then game 6 was just, And then tonight, like, I don't want to say non-factor, but he wasn't great.
Yeah, I thought Aaron had like some good defensive possessions, but I didn't think that, he brought it in the way that I felt like he had brought it previously in this series. Yeah, look, like they need Julian Strawther to step up and be good. They need one of Julian Strawther or Hunter Tyson next year to be good, just because it's going to be hard for them to get people. Right. It's going to be hard for them to get players because of how constrained they're going to be with their salary cap situation. So I'm very interested to see what they do in the offseason. And now we've got Minnesota and Dallas, and we'll talk about them momentarily. But do you have any final thoughts on this? Because to me, this really did come down to a team that had a lot of juice left in the tank versus a team that I think just didn't have much left in the tank. Maybe we should focus one more second on Rudy Gobert.
Sure.
Because I thought Rudy was, look, Nikola Jokic is the best player on the court every time he takes the court. He had 34 points, 19 rebounds, and 7 assists tonight. He was unbelievable. I thought Gobert was the best player for Minnesota tonight. I thought he was enormous. It was either him or Towns. Like, if you want to say Towns is 23 and 12 was more important, I'll completely listen to that and hear that out. I thought Towns, especially in the third quarter during their comeback, was enormous and was unbelievable. But over the course of the game, it felt like to me that Rudy was really important in terms of just constantly contesting, being around and help. And then especially in that fourth quarter, he was the Energizer Bunny that like really just created all of their extra possessions, really locked down the interior, made it harder for Jokic to find space, made Jokic a 3-point shooter just by having both of those guys out there at once, or Naz and Gobert out there at once. I thought Rudy's presence was just truly, truly critical.
Yeah, I mean, there was one play where he definitely confused Jokic. Jokic had come off, I don't know if it was a short roll or something like that. And, most guys would commit, or, maybe where Gobert was at, Jokic's like, oh, most guys aren't going to be able to recover. And he kind of threw up, and you could tell he missed the shot because he thought he was going to throw the lob, but Gobert didn't commit. Like, that's elite level stuff. Whenever you can make Jokic second guess himself and throw an off target pass or making it a poor decision, that's really big time stuff. Like, listen, I don't quote unquote like any player. I don't root for players or cheer for players. Like, I want them all to be successful. There was part of me is like, we can finally put this Rudy Gobert gets played off the court in the playoffs conversation to rest. Like, this is yet another series where Gobert averaged over 30 minutes per game, was crazy impactful. And to everything you just said, showed out in a game 7 on the road against the defending champs and the best player in the world. Now, I do like Karl Anthony Towns deserves a ton of credit because that's another guy that takes a lot of crap, Sam. And I thought he was really good tonight. He made some big shots. He took the Jokic matchup, and that's like that. There's something selfless about that, Sam, because he had to know he was going to get in foul trouble throughout this series guarding Jokic, and that was going to eat into his minutes and his energy and his legs and all of those things. And he still did it. So I'm going to give Cat some credit there as well. But yeah, this series, this win doesn't happen without Rudy Gobert either.
Yeah, to me, this was like an all-time. Like, seriously, think about this. This is a game 7 on the road against the defending champions in Denver at elevation. You're down 58-38, 20 points in the second half, and you go on a 28-point run in like 19 minutes or so to win the game. And like in the last few minutes, like they, kind of got it back within 5 or so, but I don't know. I didn't feel like they put a ton of pressure on Minnesota necessarily in those last like 3 minutes, really. Just an unbelievable all-time, like this is like an all-time classic game on some level, right? Yeah. 20-point comeback to knock out the defending champions on the road in Denver at elevation. Minnesota, whatever flowers they're going to get, deserve all of them and more. And now we get to see Anthony Edwards and Luka Doncic, and we're going to talk about that Dallas here, after we do the second game 7 tonight. But speaking of game 7, there's a lot to break down in these game 7 performances. Some games, some guys step up, other games they don't. Sometimes they just stink, right? But where the real stink happens is in the locker room post game. Yep, that's right. I'm talking about body odor. We've all been there. Maybe you're in a meeting, going to a date after work, or you're just going out and about. No one has time to worry about their smell all day long. You need to take care of it right when it becomes an issue. Enter Mando, the whole body deodorant that's got you covered from your pits to your packages to your feet. Mando is clinically proven to block odor all day and keep controlling odor for a full 72 hours. So what does that mean for you? Your whole body is fresh and odor-free from one shower to the next. Instead of masking bad body odors with loads of cologne, Mando blocks the odor before it even starts. Their starter pack is a game changer. It includes a stick deodorant, a cleansing bar, a cream, a body wash, disposable wipes. I was a big fan of the stick deodorant. I was able to take it to the gym with me this weekend, left it in the glove compartment of my car, put it on after I went to the gym. And seriously, I felt like it was there for the next 24, hours at least, even after I'd showered and everything like that. I completely buy that this controls odor for 72 hours. Mando sent me the full Mount Fuji scent. And not only did I rid myself of the paranoia of body odor, but I got compliments on how great I smelled. You can get $5 off your starter pack. That's 40% off, more than 40% off actually, with our exclusive promo code Game Theory at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. and use that promo code Game Theory. They even have a stink-free guarantee. They'll gladly refund your order within 60 days of purchase if you're unsatisfied. Again, that's over 40% off the starter pack with our exclusive code Game Theory. Head on over to shopmando.com. That's shop, MANDO.com. Okay. Bryce.
Real quick,
Let's go to
can we shout out Mike and Nori real quick as well? Like having to step in and coach. And listen, I realize Chris Finch was there and all of that and everything, but still, like, there's something different about that. The players, how you interact, who they look at, who they see when they, all of that. Just, we don't have to like dive deep into it unless you have more thoughts. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to him before we moved on.
Agree on the shout out. Great job by Mike and Nori. I'm fascinated to see if he gets looks around the league. Seems like he's getting looks, at least, in part, in Los Angeles right now. We'll see if that ends up happening. Okay. I want to go to Indiana in New York next, but first I kind of want to talk about just like a very simple concept here.
Okay.
I do not think that we have had a more substantial trade deadline that impacted the title race in the last decade. If you just look at the guys who moved and guys that are still remaining in these playoffs now, PJ Washington has been enormous for Dallas. We're going to talk about him. Pascal Siakam, the Indiana Pacers do not get to this point. Certainly, they might not get out of the play-in tournament without Pascal Siakam.
Sure.
And now here they are in the conference finals. And this is why you go all in at the deadline. This is why you go and get, and Indiana didn't go all in. They traded, 3 first-round picks that probably project as late first-round picks. But this is why you go and make these moves. And maybe we'll talk about Oklahoma City here momentarily, but
yeah,
Indiana in their front office deserves boatloads of credit for being willing to be aggressive, go out and get Pascal Siakam. Dallas's front office with Nico Harrison deserve a lot of credit for going out and getting PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. PJ has been the much bigger, important player in the playoffs so far, but Gafford gave them good minutes in the playoffs. I thought gave them okay minutes in the first series at times, even though he kind of went in and out of the lineup a little bit due to some little nicks and bumps. I really, really think that I enjoy seeing the front offices that got aggressive in the trade deadline period being rewarded. I think that's such a good thing for the league and for, front offices as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're going to talk about the Thunder and Mavericks series in just a second, but you think about what those two teams did at the deadline in comparison to each other. The Mavs go and get PJ Washington. They go and get Daniel Gafford. The Thunder made a move that, again, we held our own receipts. We called ourselves out for it. They only go get Gordon Hayward, and he is a complete non-factor in the series. Yeah. And you can't help but wonder, could the Thunder have used? I stand by what we said in terms of the Thunder needed that guy. It just turned out that Gordon Hayward was not that guy. And so it's like, what if they would have went out and got the guy that made sense, that could have contributed when they took Josh Giddey out of the lineup? Like, it's not nothing against Isaiah Joe. It's just that now Isaiah Joe's in the starting lineup. So who's going to come in off the bench? And then they would try Wiggins. And then, Cason Wallace is still a rookie. And I know rookies can contribute. We've seen Derek Lively, Ben Shepherd, but I still think that they could have used another wing forward, maybe even a big Sam. And they didn't make that kind of move to do it. And for them, it's definitely not all in because they still have 30 draft picks to work with anyway. Yeah. So it makes you go, what if, just a little bit. And to the Mavs and the Pacers credit, they don't have to do that. They made their moves. And honestly, the Knicks, I think, made the right moves at the deadline as well. Like, it just didn't work out because of the injuries.
Yeah, we'll talk about Oklahoma City here maybe in a minute. I want to, when we get to that game, I want to focus on Indiana and New York first, but I wanted to make the point about the deadline because I think it's important. Indiana really going in and going for it now has them in the conference finals.
Yep.
And part of that is that you just never know what's going to happen, right? You have to put yourself in position to be in position, right? Who knows if Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to get hurt, right? Well, you never know. Maybe sometimes Giannis is going to get hurt and you have a great first round matchup where you get an opportunity to beat an older team that was, dealing with some injuries to Damian Lillard. And then you get to the second round and then you end up in the second round and OG Anunoby and Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson are out. And then, Jalen Brunson, like, didn't he fracture his hand in this game?
Yep.
Like, you just never know what kind of position you're going to be in. And then, oh, by the way, the next series, Kristaps is not going to play in game one.
Yep.
Like, it is so incredibly important where if you feel like you have a shot in Indiana after the in-season tournament felt like it had a shot to do something a little bit special this year, to just go for it. Because in today's NBA, the windows are shorter than ever. We're going to talk about Oklahoma City here momentarily. Like, I think Oklahoma City's window has potential to be longer, but there's no guarantee that their window is longer.
Yep.
A team like Boston, like, they have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Like, their window is as long as they can keep those guys together and keep Derek White and keep Drew Holiday, who they just signed to an extension. Like, as long as they can keep everybody on that roster, their window is open. But at what point does ownership go, we don't have the money for this? Like, we're not doing this anymore.
Especially in today's NBA, right, Sam, with the second APRM and the way the tax works and all of that, and depending on who your ownership is how long do those really last? Because eventually, if these guys are as good as you think they are, or they actually are, they're all going to want to get paid. Eventually, you're always going to pay them, right? And that's what, in the NFL, it equates to a quarterback on his rookie contract. That's when you see NFL teams do crazy stuff with contracts and trades and go all in, because they will never be as cheap as whenever that star quarterback is on his rookie contract. Once that quarterback gets paid, how much ever, 30, 40, $50 million a year, then everything changes. And so it's the roster. This is a thing in the NBA now as well, because it's so hard to build out a roster with, especially, I think now, Sam, would you, more than 2 stars, if you have 3 stars, it's hard to build out your roster. Like, we've seen this with
3
Phoenix,
max guys,
3 max guys that aren't on rookie deals, right? Like, that's really, really difficult to do now.
And oh, by the way, Oklahoma City, and again, like, we'll talk about this momentarily, but they are careening toward that because both Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren look like they're going to be max guys. So we'll talk about that momentarily here. But Indiana in New York, Indiana beats New York 130-109. They just jumped all over the Knicks. Like, they were up 12 in the first quarter, 15 in the first half. And, it just kind of continued to balloon. And it never really felt like it was all that, never felt all that close in the second half. And part of that's the injuries, right? Like, shout out to Josh Hart and OG Anunoby for trying to go, right?
Yeah,
and Josh Hart plays 37 freaking minutes in this game, right? But, Anunoby tries to go. He plays 5 minutes, and
you could tell right away. I think there was a play. I think he was guarding Siakam maybe, and you could just tell he just didn't have the aggressiveness that it takes in a playoff game, let alone, like, I don't know if a regular season game he would have been able to do it. So yeah, I mean, shout out to him for trying. Yeah. Shout out for whoever shut him down, Sam, because, like, that's the thing.
Totally.
Like, especially with the hamstring and, longer than that. So I respect him trying. I respect whoever shutting it down also.
Completely agree. But, Tyrese Halliburton has a great game today. I thought Miles Turner was great again today.
How about TJ McConnell, man? What this dude just gets to the
series.
lane. He gets to the lane whenever he wants, Sam, literally whenever he wants.
Great series from TJ McConnell. Played tough minutes on Jalen Brunson. Wasn't like a Brunson stopper, but was able to just tire him out a little bit more than what is normal, right? Just a really, really, really great series from Indiana. And, we said after game, what was it? It might have been game 5 or so, that this was kind of tracking exactly like the Milwaukee series for Indiana, where Milwaukee Indiana just held home court, home court, took care of business at home. Indiana now is 6-0 at home.
Yep.
In the playoffs right now. Shout out to Gamebridge. Shout out to those fans over there in Indiana doing a great job of making it known that we're going to try and lock this building down every single time that somebody comes here. And then they just had to steal one. It was game 6 against, or no, it was game 5 against Milwaukee. And then it was game 7 against New York. They didn't panic going down 0-2 again, or 2-0. Like, there's no worry. It was just, we're going to go and we're going to win this game. Like, I think they deserve a ton of credit. They won game 2 maybe in the Milwaukee series. I can't remember exactly which one it was. Maybe game 1. I forget. But they won one of those games too.
I was impressed, man, today, because, you know, New York has had a thing all year, and I saw people tweeting, you know, the most fun team in the East in the playoffs, the New York Knicks, you know, and stuff like that. Like, they became very lovable throughout this playoff run because
we loved the Knicks.
Absolutely. And I don't even like New York City. It's like, if there's one place in the country I don't want to go to,
you live in Kansas. You hate it.
I'm terrified of New York City. I never want to go there again in my life. But I love the Knicks, and it's like, it's the Garden, and Jalen Brunson is doing all the, like, somehow the New York team became the little man in this story of the playoffs, you know, that was going to overcome all this adversity. But man, I'll tell you who I loved tonight was Tyrese Halliburton. I don't know who he was chirping at in the front row, but I absolutely loved it. I don't know if it's a celebrity or just some random dude with a whole bunch of money, because I can't imagine front row game 6 in the Garden is cheap. But every time he made a shot, he was pointing and talking. You know, but real quick shout out to Dante DiVincenzo on the Knicks as well. Like, he had a huge game in this one also. Yep. I mean, they always found guys that tried to at least keep him in it, but the Pacers were up to it. And like you said, now you get the Celtics without KP for at least game 1, if not a couple games, coming off an injury. Who knows? Like, good for them for going for it and going and stealing one on the road in game 7.
100%. Indiana now will face Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I'm like of two minds here. I think Boston is the better team, obviously, and should be able to take care of business. The thing that Indiana tends to struggle with are great point of attack ball handlers and playmakers, right? They can actually like kind of handle wings a little bit better, not like at a super high level. This isn't like the best defense on the planet. This is not like a fantastic, you know, defensive group necessarily, but the key is that they just have to outscore. Like, they're going to try and outscore you, right? And you only have to do marginally better on them than they do on you. So having guys like Pascal Siakam that they can throw on, you know, Jaylen Brown, they have Aaron Naismith that they can throw on to Jason Tatum. Like, they have these bigger, more physical dudes, it feels like, that they can kind of throw on some of Boston's guys. And I think Boston's going to win the series. I think Boston's a better team, but without Kristaps, it does feel like Boston's offense has not been quite as effective, and not having that floor spacing, not having that real weapon at the 5, especially given that Al Horford has not been unbelievable in the playoffs at this point. I absolutely give Indiana a chance in this series. Like, I think, like, no question, like, they could figure it out. The problem for Indiana is that Halliburton's obviously been a little up and down in the playoffs so far, and Boston just has multiple bodies that they can throw at them like crazy.
Well, here's the thing with Boston. In both of these series, Sam, they've played with their food just a little bit, right? And, you know, maybe I think both was game 2, which means they lost at home. So you just talked about it. Would it be crazy if Indiana went into Boston game 2, made a bunch of threes, Boston had an off shooting night, and they steal game 2? And then you just said that Indiana's undefeated at home. So now Boston's going to Indiana, and maybe Indiana's able to hold, keep home serve there. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think that's the path. Is you get one of those hot shooting nights, you still won in Boston because Boston has some of those nights, and then you just keep winning games at home. I was also looking here. I believe if I look correctly, Boston gives up a lot of above the break 3-pointers, and Indiana's like top 5 or 6 in the NBA in those. So this is a series where Boston's probably going to give up some threes. Indiana can get hot from there. Obviously, Boston can on the other end as well. But I would pick Boston probably in 5, maybe 6. But if you told me that maybe Indiana makes them work for it a little bit more. You know, if Indiana's up 2-1 going into game 4 and Boston has to go steal one on the road in game 4, I wouldn't be surprised. I just think Boston's more talented and the better team and more experienced and all of that.
So worth noting here that they only played one game with Siakam on Indiana. They played most of their 5 games like early in the season, right?
Okay.
And that was a tight game. It was in Boston. It was 129-124. I believe that both teams had all of their starters. Boston did not have Al Horford in that game, but you know, Jason Tatum goes for 30, Jaylen Brown goes for 25, Siakam goes for 23. You had 13 and 10 from Halliburton. Buddy Hield was still on the Pacers then, so like slightly different configuration. No McConnell for Indiana in that game either. So kind of all over the map here, I think. And this, like these two teams like went 2-3 against one another this year. It felt super close. Except for the first game where Boston just like absolutely boat raced them. I think they scored like 150 points. It'll be interesting to see what this series looks like. I think it could be really, really tight and really fun to track.
Yeah. And listen, I'll tell you, like Indiana, what I was impressed, like they put their pace and imposed their will at the start of game 7 tonight. They came out with energy. Yep. Now the difference, Sam, is New York's beat down, the injuries, worn down, all of those things. And so I think it showed a little bit more. Boston, I think, is probably going to have the energy to keep up with that, but are they going to like want to, right? Like, do they want to play at that pace? So if I'm Indiana, I'm putting the pedal to the metal as much as possible after every make, all of that stuff. And I'm just going, because that's my chance is to do that against Boston. And it'll be interesting to see if Tatum and Brown and, and Horford, at his age and the amount of minutes he's going to have to play, Luke Cornett, all of it, like, it'll be really interesting. Also, like Ben Shepherd, I feel like he hasn't been spectacular, but like he's been solid. Isaiah Jackson has been solid for them off the bench. Like they've pushed the right buttons there, Rick Carlisle, and the guys he's put in the games have done really well. Like it's been a really impressive run. And I know people are going to throw out the injuries and we can talk caveats later. Shout out them for making a run to the Eastern Conference Finals and beating the teams that were put in front of them.
100% agree. Okay. Let's now go to Dallas and Oklahoma City.
What a game.
And unbelievable game. I think it was the best game of the playoffs so far. And I'll just kind of say that from the jump here. Unbelievable coaching performance. And I can't believe I'm going to say this from Dallas. Sean Sweeney does a lot of their defense. I think Jason Kidd has proven himself to be a really, really good defensive coach throughout the course of his career, even going back to Milwaukee. Their defensive strategy against Oklahoma City throughout the series, I thought, was absolutely spectacular. They did the right thing playing off of Giddey. And we're going to talk particularly, I have a bunch of tape that we're going to go through about like their tendency and their decision to just run peel switching. They're going to peel switch almost everything. It felt like they switched a lot of actions, not even as a peel, but as just like a primary goal. And then they just peeled if they felt like in some way, shape, or form, Oklahoma City had an advantage, right? Sure. Unbelievable defensive strategy, it felt like, from me, for Dallas to get this series win. They win 117-116 after PJ Washington makes a couple of clutch free throws following a foul by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Go ahead.
Is that a foul? Like, I think that's a foul. So here's what confused me today.
I thought it was a foul. I don't like saying it because, like, given the way that the game has been officiated throughout the playoffs, like Ant got like raked across the arms by KCP in the fourth quarter today, and like there was no foul.
Well, 4 minutes into the Knicks game, something very similar happened. They went to a review and they said it wasn't a foul because it was after the dude had hit the player, the ball. And it's like, oh, well, if it's still in his hands, it's one thing. If it's not in his hands, I think it's a foul. Like, but I also, all I could do on a basketball floor was shoot the ball, Sam. So if somebody just touched me a little bit, it was a foul.
We gave you props for your game off the bounce last week in high school. Come on now.
Sam, you just said I was from Kansas. I go to the smallest school in Kansas. Like anything that I did in high school is unimpressive whatsoever. Also Sean Sweeney's the defensive the coordinator, right? Like I'm not mistaken with like, so shout out him for everything he's done. He was on Detroit staff whenever I first started doing Piston stuff, and very highly and I know some of the players loved him and were really upset whenever not upset at him, but upset about him leaving and not being there anymore. So shout out him for putting the game plan together. It seems like he's probably the guy that deserves the credit for the defense, not to take anything away from Kidd, but just assistant coaches need their love too.
So let's kind of just jump in here and talk about, what we're talking about with this, right? So first possession here, this is the first quarter, about 6 minutes left in the first quarter. You're going to see Josh Giddey's going to set this little screen here, almost like I don't even know what you want to call this. This is sort of it's definitely an empty side action.
Yeah.
And they're trying to play it like Kyrie's going to get over, right?
Yep.
Like Kyrie tries to go over this screen. And this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about peel switching, right? Like they just decide we're going to peel Kyrie onto Giddey and we're just going to be happy with the switch. We're going to let Derek Lively, who was unbelievable.
He was awesome
in this series.
Yeah.
I know people have talked about like, oh, Daniel Gafford, like great acquisition. I think Gafford was solid in his minutes against the Clippers. I think Gafford's obviously going to be really important against Minnesota and all of its dudes. I thought Gafford was like unplayable in this series for the most part.
Well, he couldn't pass out of the short roll. Like Lively's passing, I thought really showed up, in this series because of the way they would play Luka and Kyrie at times.
100%. And like, again, like I think Gafford's going to be important for them next series. And like, he's shown his value throughout the course of the season, but like game 6 was a great example, right? I think Gafford was like a minus 24 and Lively was like a plus 25 or something like that. It was a huge thing. So, here again, we're going to see peel switch again with Luka. Luka calls it out immediately onto Jalen Williams. He goes, Josh Green decides to set up on Lou Dort, miss shot, get the rebound here by Jalen Williams. And they just like kind of get out onto everybody. Lively back onto his original assignment with Giddey. Kyrie gets the heavy closeout, probably a foul, but they don't call it. Defensive rebound, and we're rolling. Again here. Switch, they go under it, and I think that is just like a full switch. This one, they try to go over, then they peel again with Derek Jones, right? This one, they kind of get over the top. Derek Jones, it's Kyrie under, and then Josh Green kind of gets over the top, and then Kyrie calls out a switch. Josh Green peels off onto Casey Wallace, right? Like, get the contest at the rim, get the rebound by Lively. Just the way that they're swarming, it's the way that this defense is so mobile and athletic, and they're able to just be so amorphous, kind of all over everything defensively for Oklahoma City. And plus, a big thing here is Oklahoma City did not have anybody that could take advantage of them on the block. So you don't really get the punishment for switching. I think this was such a sharp defensive strategy.
It'll be interesting if they do something different, right? Because against Minnesota, you want to play like this, and Cat can go take advantage of, say, Kyrie in the post or somebody like that. And I was just thinking the same thing, is like, where's the mismatch that you're terrified of if you're the Mavs? Like, going back to the first clip, we don't have to go back there, but my initial thought was, man, J-Dub should just try to attack Derek Lively. That was the best opportunity they were have on that possession. But you're right, they don't have the guy that can set a screen, force a switch, and then go just get a quick post, catch, finish. And so this was, it seems simple, but it was really smart.
Well, and the matchup that you wanted to avoid was probably Luka on Shea, right?
Yeah.
But Luka, didn't like hold up on Shea, but it could have been worse, right? Luka deserves like a little bit of credit here for being able to guard at the point of attack, right? So this one, again, it shows up like you can see Derek Jones at the top here. Derek Jones is trying to get over the top of this. Look at his left foot here as he tries to get over. You're going to see his left foot try and get over the top here as he like kind of like turns his body to be able to do it. And Giddey sets like a good screen here, right? Like, look at his body. He kind of tries to get over the top. Yep. He goes under in the end, and they just decide to peel it, right? Now you've got Giddey on Derek Jones. Again, Derek Jones ends up kind of peeling off onto Giddey here, right? Or no, Giddey is who he's guarding originally. You just have Jaden Hardy like kind of fighting through that action with Aaron Wiggins here. I'm sorry. This one, then you get this switch here, all the way out, close out, contest. It's just all over the place. They swarm. They're everywhere, right? This one here. Look at this off-ball action for, I believe, Shea, that is, right? So Shea comes off of this little off-ball action from Case and Wallace setting this screen. They peel it. They're happy. Again, another switch here. Tim Hardaway Jr. onto Kaysen. Then Josh Green onto Kaysen. Get this closeout onto Giddey, right? Like they're just everywhere. They're everywhere on defense, and they deserve so much credit for the way that they've battled and scrapped and clawed. Look at this early switch here, right? These 4 players here. Watch the way that PJ Washington and I think that's Tim Hardaway kind of call this out. You can see Tim Hardaway call it out ahead of time, right? He's going to put his hand up right here. Right there. See his finger? He's saying to PJ, you're going to have to switch it. Go, go, go. PJ out. Then you've got Chet out front. I think a big factor here, by the way, and I'll kind of talk about this as we let this clip go through. And this is just like fantastic swarming defense, double. They get the deflection. Chet having a bit of a longer load into his shot, I think was a huge factor in this series because it let Dallas kind of close out a little bit slowly on him. They were able to get out onto him after sinking in because Chet takes that little extra split second to get into the shot. Chet's 21 years old, right? Like he's super young. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He's going to figure it out. But that's a really important skill for him moving forward, is a big that becomes like a real floor spacer. Think of somebody like Kristaps, how quickly Kristaps gets that shot off from 3 with such a high release point. That's next for Chet. Chet's got to get that shot off just a little bit quicker and to be able to impact.
Think about how many clips we've watched, Sam, and yet have the Thunder put the Mavs in scramble maybe once or twice. And what we always talk about with the Thunder is everybody can dribble past shoot. Well, when you switch everything, you at least keep you on them, like one-on-one in every spot. You know who you're matched up with. I remember late in the game, they tried to put 2 on the ball out of a timeout, and the Thunder immediately got a wide open 3 because that's what the Thunder do. They catch, they have ball movers, swing, all of that stuff, drive and kick. What this has allowed the Mavs to do is at least stay locked in with a man, stay out of scramble, which the Thunder are just going to annihilate you with because they have so many guys that can dribble past shoot.
100% right. This next one here, you know, we've got Derek Jones Jr. switches on to Chet. PJ Washington comes up. Look at PJ Washington. PJ Washington just being an absolute dog at the point of attack.
He was good, man.
He was so good in game 6. He was so good. This one here, you've got another switch here, another good screen from Giddey, forces that switch. Daniel Gafford out onto Shea. That's an advantageous matchup for Oklahoma City, right? And they still just like don't really get anything out of it.
This was really good from Luka. Watch Luka here force the pass.
This one to me is kind of the like prototypical best possession, you know, of like the exact thing I'm talking about, basically. So this is 8 minutes, 24 seconds left in the second quarter. You get this switch here from Jones. You get Gafford onto Shea. That's an advantageous matchup for Oklahoma City in terms of what they want. You get this little like stunt and recover out from Luka. Luka ends up blowing by Lou, and just look at how Luka peels perfectly back out onto Shea here. Derek Jones has to come off of Giddey to help. Jones goes here. Gafford peels back onto Giddey, and then Luka is just going to peel off onto Shea, and they're in perfect condition again. They're in perfect position defensively after what should be a scramble, right? And now you're back. You're set.
Yeah.
10 seconds left on the shot clock. Yes, you have a Luka Shea matchup that's pretty advantageous for you in theory. but that's a pretty good job. And then look at this closeout from Gafford. Unbelievable to get this block. Just that possession epitomizes every single thing that I'm talking about here with this, peel switch defensive strategy that Dallas employed. And it's such a credit to the dudes on the court for being able to execute it, because we talked a lot this season about Dallas employing these funky ass defensive schemes that we hated so much, like same side help, so much like weird shit that was strange that we didn't love. And here they are. This stuff takes a lot of communication. This stuff takes being so like in tune with each other on the court all at once. And they just absolutely were everywhere all at once on the court, and they deserve a ton of credit. This is a zone possession, I believe, actually.
Yeah, looked like zone to me as well.
Yeah, this is pretty fun. And again, just like another example of them just being like pretty fun and like switchable in terms of defensive strategy, not in terms of scheme. This one is 2-3, as you can see. If you're watching on YouTube, by the way, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, it's really helpful for us. Go to the YouTube channel. You get to see me and Bryce break down tape like this all the time. It's a really good time. Hit that subscribe button. This one, though, they double, get the close out, and then Lively's able to get this little steal on the entry pass to Jalen Williams. Third quarter, 6 minutes left now. Early switch there from Kyrie onto Derrick Jones Jr. Then look at this. They peel early here, where this should be in theory. Actually, I don't know why Luka is there. This might still be a zone possession.
I think they went zone here in the third for a little bit, because they're down right now. They've been down like, double digits here, both of these clips. I think they went zone. And again, I remember seeing the clip where Kid was doing their zone call must be fist also. Because I remember them showing him make the call. So
yeah, this is a 2-3 zone from Dallas here. Just really sharp, right? Like watch Derrick Jones bumps the roll man, sends it back out to Luka. Derrick Jones in the middle now does a great job cutting off that angle from Isaiah Joe. Derek Lively comes up from the corner, gets the contest on Case and Wallace. They get the offensive rebound because it's hard to rebound out of a zone.
Sure.
Then Luka, great closeout onto Jalen Williams there. And now they're just defending, right? Now you're defending everywhere. You get this contest from Derek Lively. Great rebound from Derek Lively. They're just so active and aggressive. I loved everything Dallas did defensively. Now we actually are in man-to-man defense here. And just look at this. Look at these dudes flying around. Again, Luka with the help there. Lively with the help. Kyrie. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Kyrie with the steal. Kyrie deserves so much credit defensively.
I agree.
Deserves so much credit defensively. He was outstanding on defense throughout the course of this series for the Dallas Mavericks. This one here, another peel defensively, Derrick Jones. Then look at this. This is really fun here. Derrick Jones calls out this switch, PJ Washington onto Shea. Watch Derrick Jones communicate here with Derek Lively, calling out a peel for Lively to take Jalen Williams, and then Derrick Jones just to fly out there to Chet, because that's a matchup they preferred, right?
Yep.
Derek Lively calls it out, actually. So they call it out, and then you have Derek Lively who's able to just sit in the middle, right? Just really, really sharp defensive communication.
That's also really good on-ball defense from PJ Washington as well on SGA.
Unbelievable on-ball defense. Unbelievable on-ball defense from PJ Washington to stay in front of one of the best offensive players in the NBA there. Gets the rebound, finishes the possession.
Sam, think about the dudes we're giving credit for their defense over the last hour. Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid, PJ Washington, Luka. Like, these are the guys we're shouting out for their defense, which I just think is amazing.
Yeah, 100%. And they deserve it. Like, Naz Reid, played really well tonight. He got cooked a little bit games 3 through 6, but he deserves it. Then this one, early switch there. Shea tries to go early, trying to get an easy bucket here. Look at Luka step up. Look at how available Luka is on this weak side here, guarding Lou Dort. I thought that was also a really critical decision to put Luka on Lou Dort throughout the course of this series, knowing that Lou Dort, again, has a bit of a slower release. I thought the slower releases for Oklahoma City on a lot of their shooters, Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Chet Holmgren, like it showed up, like the little things like that. This is why we talk about how quick a guy's release is when we do draft coverage, right?
Yep.
Like huge. See Luka here. He's up. He's helping.
Kyrie was already making the weak side rotation.
Unbelievable. Look at how early Kyrie is here anticipating this. So Kyrie is right here. He's already looking in the corner because he sees the split second before this what's going on. He sees that they're taking this empty side action. He's looking in the corner. You can literally see him, eyes pointed that way. He knows Luka's going to have to step up here potentially to help. He knows exactly what his next assignment is going to be. And look at how early this is before the ball has left Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's hands. Kyrie's moving toward the closeout already. The anticipation here just totally locked in. Again, like Kyrie, over the years, he's gotten a lot of, people had a lot of issues with his defense, right? He was fantastic defensively, I thought, in this series. He was so good defensively.
And then PJ and Derrick Jones Jr. both rotating out of how often do we see those guys that initially cut off the drive or in the lane or whatever, not make that next effort, make that next play? They both close out to the perimeter.
And I can't tell if they like miscommunicate this or what. Or if
this part's weird.
Or if they just decide we're putting two on the ball here and letting, one of Luka or Derek Lively try and take control of this role if necessary. But, PJ Washington recovers and gets back for this contest. Just really, really good work. Really, really good work there across the board from Dallas. And another thing I want to talk about here is where Oklahoma City goes from here. We're going to do a whole Oklahoma City offseason preview, I think, maybe next episode, honestly, on Tuesday, because I don't know if we have one game on Tuesday and it's an early game. I think that a big issue for Oklahoma City in this series was having to play as small as it did and not getting as many mismatch advantages as they could have and not having as many counter or combo breakers as what you would hope for.
Yeah.
They just didn't have like a physical option to go to. And like people will talk about like Jalen Williams, right? Like I think people are like way overreacting to how Jalen Williams played. Like he was fine in these playoffs to me. I think he shot like 43%, which was an issue. But if you look at the numbers, I think he was like 17, 7, and 6 in this series or something, but shot 43%, which was a problem. I think he shot 38% from three.
And 84% from the free throw line. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the issue was that he just couldn't separate against a lot of these guys. But I think that the big reason why he can't separate is that he's often guarded by fours. He's guarded by like the biggest, most physical dude out there. The thing that would really help him is being guarded by smaller players. Like if you move him to the 2-3, he's going to be able to take physical advantage of those dudes and you're going to get more post opportunities. Now, when I say this, I'm not saying that I think Chet Holmgren should be a 4 and that they should go get a big. I don't think that. If like Donovan Clingan fell to them at 12, like whatever, like go for it, right? Like
sure.
Take advantage of what's there, but don't reach for one. Don't like overpay for Isaiah Hartenstein in free agency. To me, what they need is they need just like a physical 4. They need their version of Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is necessarily. Like we'll see what that is, but with the way that they want to play, you want to find somebody that can be physical and can create different mismatch, combo breakers for you in the playoffs. Like I have a name that might sound a little bit crazy on its face, but we'll talk about it momentarily. When you watch Oklahoma City and you watch this young team go through this playoff series, where they battled and scratched and clawed with a team that I loved as soon as they made those trades, because I thought they were just going to be multiple and be able to solve different problems on the court in Dallas. what did you think the issue was for Oklahoma City?
Yeah, I think some physicality. And I love the style of play that Oklahoma City plays. The dribble, pass, shoot, 5 out, attack, swing, all the stuff we're talking about. I think I also don't want to overreact to them losing this series. They lost in 6 to a Mavericks team that, you were higher on than me, but I think we both believe is really good with, they have one of the best 5 best players in the NBA. And, they were this close to forcing game 7 and potentially winning the series. So I thought SGA was everything you would want to see in these playoffs. I thought J-Dub struggled a little bit in this series. I thought Chet struggled a little bit, but that was expected. Like we talked about this all year. The only reason that I wasn't predicting them to go to the conference finals, the NBA finals, was because you have to go through some heartbreak. You have to struggle a little bit to then figure some things out. And so I don't think they're like some flawed roster, but if you told me they could add a 4-man in place of Josh Giddey that knocks down 36 to 38% of their threes, rebound the heck out of the ball, be physical, even if it's not the most like attack you off the bounce player, I think that's a guy that I'd be really intrigued by adding to the roster.
All right, I'll just throw this out there now. I think a guy that they should look at going to get this summer is Julius Randle.
Okay.
Like New York had all this success, throughout the later course of the season without Randle. I have some questions about like where Randle fits moving forward on this roster, kind of, right? You have OG Anunoby, you have Josh Hart. You want to be able to play these guys, right? Julius Randle is like an ass kicker, and it's a perfect fit with Chet because what's Julius's problem? Can't really guard the rim, right? Chet's a great rim protector. What's Chet's issue? Can't really rebound at a super, super high level, right? Because he gets moved around super, easily because of how high his center of gravity is and how skinny he is. Julius Randle's kind of an ass kicker on the defensive glass, right? I kind of love I wonder about Julius Randle in the playoffs. Like I think a lot of people do, right? But Julius Randle can also shoot now a little bit.
Does he stop the ball a little bit too much for you? Like that was my that's my only caveat with Julius Randle is I don't mind this idea at all. I don't think it would like have to be a crazy trade. I don't even mind that he's not great defensively because everybody else you have around him makes up for that. And I think Julius can probably shoot it well enough. I think his skill level makes sense. I just wonder, like, how often does Julius want mid-post isolation? Maybe they need it, though. Maybe we just talked about having a guy to take advantage of switches.
And those are my two worries here, right? Is mid-post isolations for Julius. Like, that kind of takes up space in the areas that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander likes to operate.
For sure.
Also, like, the ball movement, right? Julius averages a lot of assists. I think he has, like, good vision. But I'm going to stop and survey as opposed to that.
Yeah.
And a thing for Oklahoma City this playoffs was, look, it wasn't like we're watching Malcolm Brogdon out there and, he's going to stop, put the ball on the ground twice and then think about it. But I do kind of like the idea of go get like a post ass kicker who, by the way, only has 2 years left on his deal. So it lines up perfectly for when you have to pay Jalen and Chet. Like that to me is like kind of like the timeline matches up. Eric Weiss, shout out Eric Weiss, just like awesome dude. Shout out his company, Sports Aptitude. Yes, like is New York just dumping Randle for picks? I don't know. Like that wouldn't blow my mind. Would that surprise you? Just because if you could go out and get like a couple of first round picks for Julius Randle and, up the coffers in terms of your asset chest, because everybody knows that they're star hunting.
Because Randall's moving in that move anyway. So what's the difference to like, if you're New York and you think you can make it through without him, if you can just add a couple more firsts to add to, like you say, the chest that you're going to send for whoever the star is that you're going to chase. What's the difference? If they think they have the roster to make it through a regular season without him, that would be my worry with New York is, do you have the roster to make it through the regular season without him?
Yeah. Like it's a fair question. Like, I think you'd have to go get some other offensive option, right? You'd have to go find another primary playmaker to play with Jalen Brunson, right? Or a secondary next to Jalen who can be a number 2. I don't know. Like they played really well without Julius Randle this year.
Sure.
And like like Eric says, like I don't know that Randle has like a crazy market out there. If you could get like a couple of picks that are like decent picks that up your asset chest moving forward, could put you in a better position to go get another star. I don't know. Like that kind of works for me. And like Julius, yes, like Julius's problem is that like he struggles to guard in space a little bit, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea here of this move. So Cuckoo DMV asks like, could they go get Lowry basically and use it to renegotiate and extend him? I don't think Utah's moving Lowry. I'm just going to straight up say it.
Yeah.
Like they did not move him. From what I understood, they had no interest in moving him at the deadline. Like I'm sure teams called, and from my impression, like there was just no interest in moving him. And Utah has the ability to go out and renegotiate and extend him because they have space. So if you're Lowry and you want to stay in Utah and be the number 1 guy, you're in a pretty good spot, right? And someone asks, or Cuckoo DMV asks again, aren't they tanking for Cooper? I don't think Lowry stops you from tanking for Cooper, to be honest. Just given what their guard situation looks like right now, they were pretty bad at the end of the year. So
there's also some other, we won't get into 2025. There's also other guys other than Cooper where like, if you don't end up number 1 and you end up with Ace Bailey or something like that, like you're still going to feel pretty good. Like we're based off where we're sitting right now. So it's not a 1-person draft. So defensive rebounding specifically, Sam, Chet averaged 6.3, Giddey 5, SGA 4.7 during the regular season.
And the Giddey thing is important because I think you and I agree that they probably move Giddey this summer, right?
And so there's your, what did I just say? He was your second best defense. I'm only talking defensive rebounds. Over the last 4 years, Randall has averaged 9, 8.2, 8.1, 7. Obviously, he didn't play the whole year this year. And think about the rebounders he's playing with in New York, where they're taking some away from him and Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein. So point being, he rebounds the ball, especially on the defensive end. And he's averaged over 2 offensive rebounds a game throughout multiple years of his career. Oklahoma City didn't have a single guy. Chet averaged 1.6, Giddey 1.4, nobody else over 1 offensive rebound per game, all regular season stats.
Yeah, they need to go find a guy who can like go get defensive rebounds. Lowry's great for them. Like he's probably my number 1 option for Oklahoma City. The more I've thought, like I think he would make perfect sense. It's just 2 teams have to be willing to make a move. And I don't think Utah has shown no desire to do something like that yet.
Yeah.
Right. Just no desire to even consider something like that. So yeah, like it's you're in that position where you need to kind of make a move. And if I'm them, I'm making a move this summer.
I was going to say, so that's the thing. And I don't want to get into the weeds of their offseason. We would both agree that this wasn't some major failure. Like this was still a successful season for the Thunder. 100%. Okay. But it also showed us some of the flaws in terms of what they need to build out this roster, and they should go make those moves this offseason, no matter what people say about how good the West is going to be. Like, because the thing is, like, you can say whatever about, like, Wemby's coming behind you. The Grizzlies are coming behind you. There is no other time than right now. There's no waiting anything out. You might as well take your chances and go.
And here's the other thing. And I know like Oklahoma City fans like don't want to hear this, right? But like, you just don't know what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to want. And I know that Shai has said all of the right things, and absolutely seems like a guy who's happy in Oklahoma City right now and is happy to stay there and is happy to be the number 1 option on what looks like a future title contender. You just don't know what he's going to want in 2 years, right? Like that's the reality. Like things could totally change in some way, shape, or form. You hope that they don't. You hope that you keep building this thing and you make him as happy as humanly possible as he continues, his trajectory into becoming, an MVP candidate, and was an MVP candidate this year. But you just don't know. And because of that, you got to go make a move this summer and you got to go try and do it. And Like Julius Randle is like a multi-time all NBA player, like who you might be able to get for like relatively cheap.
No,
And he solves like a lot of problems for you.
I like Julius Randle. Like I feel like we're going to be in the minority of liking him as like he's been an all-star, right? He was an all-star this year before he got hurt. 3 of the last 4 years, he was an all-star. He was what, 8th in MVP, 2nd team all NBA just a few years ago, 3rd team all NBA last season. Yeah. I mean,
maybe the Knicks don't want to move him. Like totally possible.
Sure. I think that's the side that would be more interesting. And I'm sure we'll talk about it when we do their offseason preview. Do they currently have the roster or the means for that to happen? I think would be what is interesting. And then you also have to add in Oklahoma City maybe giving up a player in that, New York could take a player back if there was a player they liked, as opposed to the extra draft assets or whatever. So,
yeah. And, I've been trying to like figure out, is there another player like Denny Avdia makes all the sense.
I
in the world.
really like Denny Avdia. He had a really good year.
They're not moving Denny. Like from
shouldn't.
what I've been told, like Washington sees like Bilal Coulibaly and Denny like is their guys that they're building with, along with this number 2 overall pick and the other guys on their roster. But like they see like Bilal, Denny, and like the number 2 pick is like the guys that they want to use as their like building blocks, is from what I know. Right.
Denny's contract is stupid. Also, like ridiculous.
Yeah. It's a great contract. The last thing I want to note here on Oklahoma City is I've seen like a bit of a narrative on like, they're too patient. And then they actually helped Dallas, right? They helped Dallas get PJ. They facilitated the PJ deal. Here's the thing. Like, do you guys really think that they wouldn't have found a way to get PJ Washington, like regardless? Like if they were willing to give up a pick in some way, shape, or form, like they probably would have done. They would have figured out a way to do it. They would have figured out a way to make it happen at the end of the day. If they wanted PJ, like they would have made it work. For Oklahoma City to get something, that's just like additive to me, right?
Yeah. Listen, they did what we thought they needed to do, is just the wrong dude. Like they just, like they scouted the wrong player. I don't know. I saw a quote today that like Gordon Hayward answered a question like my role wasn't what I thought it was. Like maybe Gordon just
the most insane answer I've seen from a player all season. He was unplayable. Like he was I've had no problem with Gordon throughout his career. You and I went on this show after the deadline and we thought this was a great move for them.
Absolutely.
Hand up. We could not have been more wrong.
Correct.
Delusional. Absolutely delusional quote.
I didn't watch it. I just saw people commenting on it. It's like, so you can't always account for those things though, Sam. Like you try to get as much intel as you can. You try to figure those things out, but maybe it just like they wanted him to play 12 minutes a night. He thought he was going to come in and start and play 30. And when he didn't, then it completely like, maybe it messed him up mentally, whatever. We don't know all the ins and outs, but at the end of the day, Presti tried to make a move that we all thought was the right move. Not all, me and you thought was the right move. They just acquired the wrong player. And so, I mean, I thought that I wouldn't have gone star hunting at the deadline. Like I didn't think they should do that. I thought they needed a playoff run to really see the flaws of certain players and the roster construction. Now they know. They gave it a great effort. They were this close to being in the Western Conference Finals. And now you go and you do make that move this offseason. I would not like seeing them be overly patient this offseason. That would, bother's not the right word, but I wouldn't like that.
And we'll talk about them probably on Tuesday. We'll probably do off-season previews on Tuesday. We'll probably start with Knicks and OKC maybe, because those are 2 really, really interesting teams. All right, time to do draft stuff. Okay. I gave you 1 assignment for today. It was to watch.
You gave me 2 assignments, but Enrique Freeman.
Yeah, but also. We're not going to talk about Enrique Freeman. I really like Enrique Freeman, but I like him as like a really, really good 2-way. Not a guy that like we're going to spend a crazy amount of time on at this point. Maybe when we do our sleepers thing, we'll talk about him. But the assignment I gave you was to watch the Zaccharie Risacher game against Nanterre in the quarterfinals of the French League playoffs. Zaccharie Risacher went for 28 points in this game. I think he went like 11 or 16 from the field or something.
Something like that. 5 of 8 from 3.
5 of 8 from 3, 0 assists, 5 turnovers, a few rebounds. Do you have the number in front of you?
I don't. What I had prepared to say though is I thought he was more impactful on the boards than what the stats show, because he does a really good job getting involved. He had 6 rebounds, 2 offensive, 4 defensive. I thought his offensive rebounding anticipation really showed, even with just 2 offensive boards. And even defensively, he had a couple where he came in, got a tip away from an offensive player, and his teammate probably got credit for it. So,
okay. So what I want to do is I just want to break down the tape of this thing.
Let's do it.
What I will say is, as we get into this, I thought Risacher was good in this game. I thought he took great advantage of what was presented to him in this game.
Sure.
I don't really think it moved the needle for me.
Sure.
All that much on him as a prospect. He did a couple of things that like were really interesting that I thought showcased a little bit more juice than what I thought he had. But I don't know that it like totally swung things in one direction or another for me. And we'll kind of break down why as we get into the tape.
So real quick, I'm already higher on him than you, so this would make sense, but it didn't move anything for me either. Like I didn't watch this game and then all of a sudden start talking about him as potentially the number 1 pick again, which, a few months ago, I would have had that conversation. So I'm in the same, this performance for me was more so clarification for where I have him on the board. And I felt like, oh, okay, he's making shots, shows a little bit attacking closeouts, had some on-ball defense, off-ball defense, not so much. The rebounding needs to add strength. Like it was just like, hey, I feel like my scout on him is correct. And I like where I have him on my board. I think I just value him a little bit more than you. And that's going to happen in this draft with these, 3,
100%.
8 or whatever. It just is what it is in this class.
100%. So let's jump in. So Zaccharie Risacher, if you haven't seen him before, here he is on the back line. He is number 10 for the team in red, which is Borg over in France. 6'9", 6'10" let's call him in shoes. Forward, somewhere between a 3 and a 4, has some ball skills, his knockdown shots at a high level this year. I've liked the off-ball defense for the most part this year.
I did until this one.
Not a great example of it. But just for like a basic scout profile for people that are watching, he is projected. I would say he will go somewhere in the top 5 in this class. I don't know where that will be. Could be as high as 1. Could be, from when I talk to teams, I would say that Risacher is the name that comes up second most behind Alex Sarr, at least.
Interesting.
That's not to say that, the teams at the top will, feel one way or another about it. But in the aggregate, when I talk to teams, I would say Risacher's name is the one that comes up second most behind Sarr's.
Interesting.
Okay. So as I've pointed him out, running baseline here, little mini like swipe, half-hearted dig on the back line and just like totally gets lost off the ball here to start the game. So a little bit complicated, right? Like he and number 24 here, I'm actually not sure who that is, number 24. Here and here, they're just going to kind of lose track of this switch between these two as they're running off ball, right? Seems like one of them calls out a switch. I'm guessing it's 24, or like maybe their principles are that they're supposed to call out a switch here, but somebody there is lost. I am guessing it's Risacher, given the fact that he's like totally in the mud. You would need to talk to them like 100% to know for sure, but somebody is lost there. Yeah, right.
I would agree. And like at the very least, if he's not switching, he probably needs to communicate with his teammates. Like, hey, they've relocated, they've exchanged, you're low man now, you're behind, whatever. I thought he got caught kind of in no man's land. Like he wasn't sure who he was guarding. So he didn't, like his man could have caught and shot a wide open three also if he didn't give up the back door. So,
yep. So this one here, Risacher, number 10, right there, coming down the paint. Defensively again, this time they get a steal. He's going to get a run out. Gets swatted at the rim. This is a foul. He goes to the line. I do just want to call out like ambidextrous skills with the ball, like very comfortable dribbling in the open court with his left hand. B, not a ton of elevation
with his left, but he doesn't elevate. And I will say I've seen him get hung another time or so. Also, I like that he goes with his left and aggressively, but you're right.
Yeah, just not a ton of vertical pop right now, and that's okay. We're going to see a couple of clips where I think going off a 2, he has a little bit of vertical pop. Yeah, but going off 1 there in transition, going for the left-handed throw down, just kind of doesn't have a ton of pop there. So this one, gets kind of back cut, recovers, gets out onto Joel Ayayi. Shout out Gonzaga. That's who that is there for Nanterre. Recognizes the switch, gets out onto number 20, goes for the ball, just completely whiffs, and then ends up fouling.
Yep.
Right? Just not ideal. Teenagers playing professional basketball, it's never going to look great defensively. I thought he had a particularly rough game defensively in this one. 7 minutes left in the first quarter here.
It's a good read.
Great read. And what I love most about this is my guess is that this is not like a preordained set. I am guessing that this is a read by Risacher, kind of seeing who's there, right? So number 83 here, going to come through the set. Risacher is going to come around the screen, and then he's going to make a read, right?
His man ducks under.
So he's going back up over the top, and he's going for this dunk. I still will say here again, this isn't a whole lot of elevation to me, which is fine. He catches and dunks. I think that the reaction here to kind of flare and then cut to the basket when it's a completely wide open lane is a very good reaction.
That I did want to say that, this shows you a little bit of mentality that he's more than a shooter, because a lot of if just floor spacers would have just flared this to the corner and looked to shoot the 3. So I did like kind of the mentality of I'll go to the rim whenever I see this open up.
100% agree. Goes off of 1 foot.
Yep.
Gets above the rim, enough to finish with a big dunk, right? This one on the ball against Ayayi again, just kind of gets beat. They're off the bounce. And then Ayayi kind of finishes through him, right? After this little scramble with the ball. Not ideal there for me. Not ideal for Risacher there. Next, corner. A lot of Borg's possessions start and everything with Risacher in the corner.
Sure.
That is like his main role. Shout out my man in the comments that actually just asked this. He is often in the corner, offensively. And sometimes there are corner lifts. Sometimes there's cuts back door. Sometimes he's, sitting in the corner waiting to space, right?
He is a true off the ball player. Like maybe of anybody, any of these guard wings forwards, he is the most especially for his role right now, he's going to play off the ball more than any player you watch in the top 10 that's not a big, I would say off the top of my head.
Yep. So this one here, what I want to call out is, to me in this game, it seemed like Nanterre was very comfortable with him beating them.
I wouldn't disagree.
It seemed like to me that they felt like they wanted to sag off of him and really tag the rollers and really try and stop these guys from getting downhill and get easy shots at the rim, as opposed to giving him threes, right? That's the tape in terms of defensive strategy, that's what stood out to me. And it sounds like you kind of agree.
I wouldn't disagree. So for people like who have watched the Mavericks Thunder series or our breakdowns of that, kind of think of what the Thunder's defensive scheme was to the Mavericks in terms of taking away the ball screener, the roller. And then we said from the top, Sam, that PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Josh Green would have to make weak side corner threes. I would not disagree that it was somewhat similar to that. Risacher make these shots.
And by the way, Derrick Jones Jr. shot 37% from three in that series. PJ Washington shot 47% from three in that series. Was huge. Yeah. Those two were big. But this one now, this is a ball screen here where center comes up, sets the screen. Flip the screen. Center comes up. Sets the screen, flips, and then rolls. And you're going to see here, Ayayi is going to come way in and tag, right? Because they are more comfortable with Risacher beating them as he lifts to the wing. Really sharp, just like good small movement. Relocation. Really good. Makes this a longer closeout for Ayayi to go from here to here as opposed to here to here. Really, really good. Really smart off-ball movement. But this is essentially a wide open three.
Sure.
Right? Because that's what they were willing to give him. This one, good little tip out.
Those are the rebounds I was talking about. Like, I feel like he does have a knack for doing that a little bit.
Yep. And then this one, Risacher.
Bad decision. Not enough strength.
Yeah, bad decision, not enough strength, just not awesome on the ball. Like, this is kind of the reality of who he is. He is not a fantastic on-ball player. Like, I think that Franz Wagner was like a pretty real level ahead of him entering the NBA as an on-ball player, and that's okay, right? Risacher is still quite young, but, doesn't really see this double coming.
Yeah, it's bad.
This is like a pretty easy anticipation here that he should see this help and should see this double coming. And if he doesn't even see that, he needs to see this guy coming, because that guy'd probably be coming for a double, right?
Yep.
So ends up being a turnover. This is one of his 5 turnovers. Was not ideal. Again, this one here out on defense gets up over the top, right? And now this is where you're talking about you like the on-ball defense.
Yeah, I thought this possession was solid.
Yep. Did a good job. Stays attached to Ayayi
until the end.
Yeah,
like he gets beat off the ball again. I thought the off ball was rough. And again, in my notes, I didn't have that from throughout most of the year. So
agree.
Was interesting.
Completely agree. This one again, you see him kind of run this little early action, and then he's going to relocate down into the corner, wide open 3. Misses that one, but I like the off-ball movement again. Like, it's just like kind of a simple set here. Nothing crazy, a little like pitch back to the guard. They're going to run like a little exchange here on the backside to be able to get these two defenders confused. Again, though, like, it feels like to me that they were comfortable leaving him. Like, I'm not saying that like he was bad and like played poorly. It just felt like Nanterre was like very comfortable. Like, okay, we don't want the other guys to beat us. If somebody's going to beat us, we want it to be Risacher. So this one here grabs the rebound, going to grab and go. Still in the first quarter, by the way. This time he just decides to pull up for 3, misses. They get the offensive rebound, which is great, but not super sharp there. I would prefer he does not take this shot, right?
Yeah.
So like, what are we seeing here? Is he slowing down? Like, this is a real question, right? Again, the fact that they're
playing way off,
lining up at the foul line here says to me, okay, let him beat us. If he's going to shoot a 3, he's going to shoot a 3. What I would probably like to see here is just like get it to the Garden, like reset the offense.
Sure.
Right. Just get into a half court possession and roll. I get why he takes it. It's an open 3, but yeah, I mean, you're feeding right into their hands. This is where he starts to get hot.
Yeah. Second quarter was, yeah.
So this one, This is where we start to get into like, I think that he has a very real comfort handling the ball, right? He is a very real, like, I can handle the ball in the open court. I'm comfortable with both hands. I can like get to step backs in fun ways. But like going forward is the issue. Like he can't really like put his shoulder into somebody. He can't really
not strong enough.
Create separation going forward. This one here, though, again, what are we going to call out?
Aggressive tag,
right? Like barely around the screen at this point. Center hasn't even started his role yet. And this man that was here is like already up here trying to like hit the tag early in the lane, right?
Yep.
Just very clear that their strategy in this game was, okay, we're going to let Risacher beat us. And great closeout here, but a better play by Risacher, like deserves a ton of credit. He's going to drill this 3. That's a 6-step back 3. Awesome play. Next one over in the opposite side corner of the inbounds pass. Dribble handoff. And then just like kind of chucks this thing completely away. No idea. Just like that's just like the kind of skill error you can't see. You know what I mean? I don't really like, it feels like he's trying to get to his step back here to you, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to get to like literally the same shot that he just hit a minute ago. Like he's like putting the ball on the ground and putting it between his legs already, right? He's not trying to drive baseline.
Well, that's why I was glad you rewound it, because it's like, man, was there a baseline drive here where he could have attacked the defender? He has his hips open. I don't know that some guys could beat and play through that contact. He's not capable of that right now. So
yeah. And then just like, that's just a skill error. Like you can't.
That was the most, like, I thought his other 4 turnovers were mostly strength based or just like bad decisions. Like the first one we saw, I know he has 2 at the very end. I'm sure we'll talk about that were bad, but
yeah,
that one was just, not good.
Skill error. That's what it is. This one again, like to start out as a Spain, if I remember correctly.
It looks like they're trying to run Spain. He's kind of early.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Spain is going to be a ball screen set here and then a back screen set for the screener. So, a lot of the time this screener would come here and roll. Risacher would screen this guy's man and make the big and Risacher's man communicate through some sort of switch or communicate through the action so that the big knows that this screen is coming, right? And it's just early, like you said, like A, good ball pressure from Nanterre there, but B, he's early on the Spain there. So I like this. This is one where like I really like the relocation. It feels like to me what they're trying to do almost is like next this, right? Where they have this man here, number 23, who I believe is Jan Begarin, the former selection of the Boston Celtics. He comes up here, you kind of rotate this way sometimes, rotate down there, and then, kind of rotate across and Begarin stays there. Not every team runs it that way, but, some teams do. And this time they just decide we're going to have Begarin kind of recover out to the 3-point shot. So instead of doing what I do, they just have Begarin next, get the ball out of the point guard's hands. He gets it to Risacher, and they're just like, no, you can just go close out onto Risacher, right? Drills this 3, easy, quick release, catch and shoot 3, right? Like that's sharp. That's a really good make by Risacher. I think this is another 3 that's coming here, right? And this is all in the stretch of like 2.5 minutes where he's like drilling like 3 or 4 threes. This one, again, just
tons of
ball screen, super heavy tag. Just a super, super heavy tag. All the way in. They have like 4 guys in the paint here. And he drills the 3. And like, it sounds like I'm being negative on Risacher like throughout this game, taking advantage of all of these open shots and all of these open opportunities. That's a credit to him.
Sure.
He did exactly what his job was supposed to be off of these heavy tags.
Sure.
He did his job to a fantastic degree in half court offense, right? We'll talk about some of the transition stuff. We've already seen some of it, but really, really good work by Risacher being able to take advantage of what the defense presented him. I do think that the defense presented him fairly easy opportunities in this game, and it's worth contextualizing it in that way. So this one, ball screen, they just decide to switch it early, right? Risacher comes out on the ball, then they just peel switch out onto the big. He does a good job kind of helping there. They go get the ball. I thought this was a really good defensive possession from him.
Yeah, for sure.
Next one, he's in the corner. I think this one's quite poor, if I remember correctly. He kind of goes for the steal there, the lunge.
He's
not
done it
great.
A couple times now. He's done the same thing.
Yep. This one, he like helps way aggressively.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here? Like way aggressive help off of his man.
His man gets
the rebound.
Yep, absolutely.
It's exactly right. Ends up eventually being a bucket here. It's just like that's bad. It's just not good enough. Not really another way to put it. Like, you can't help like that in that much of an aggressive way. I think this one's another made three. No, this might be a two, if I remember correctly.
This is the drive. Is this the drive? Yeah.
Yeah. So remember last time, he caught one of these passes in the corner. He tried to, go between the legs to get to a step back. This time, the man is just like a little bit further out, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being like up on his hip here, he's all the way back here, which gives Risacher that extra bit of space, and you're going to see him be able to kind of attack this play a little bit easier. Attacks,
off 2
finishes off of 2 feet. If he can get up off of 2 feet, he has some real pop.
Because there's like a crowd there.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying, like, there's a crowd there. And so whenever there's somebody, when there's a crowd that, we've talked about this recently after we were talking about the combine results in terms of some guys jump worse. Like, there's 2 guys standing right in front of him and a guy right behind him. And he's able to like fearlessly leave the floor off 2 feet. I mean, he's right inside the lane too. So, I mean, this is solid athleticism and vertical pop compared to what we saw off of 1.
100% agree. Could not agree more. This one, I think that they gave him a turnover for this play.
They did.
Yeah. I don't love the fact that they gave him a turnover here. I think it's like more of an issue of the handoff, I would venture.
Yeah.
Ayayi does a good job, like kind of getting his hands in there
for sure
and making it a little bit difficult. And, now they start the break, right? And here's Risacher, flyby. That's a hard closeout, obviously, but like, you just hope that he doesn't fly by that badly, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Good rebound here. Gets the ball up. And this is another one off of 2 feet, right? Just a great closeout attack here, right?
I think this is the more impressive one because he truly attacks a closeout.
Yep. Uses the threat of the pump fake here.
Yes.
Gets the flyby and then has to put the ball on the ground, puts it on the ground twice. I mean, I would love to see him like not have to take that little gather dribble, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it looked like there was a
1,
little extra.
2. Yeah. Just like that little 1-2 in the NBA, that window kind of closes a little bit quicker, but does such a good job here with that pump fake that doesn't end up killing him and goes up off of 2 and goes up explosively, finishes at the rim. Really, really awesome. That to me is probably his best play of the game.
I agree. I would agree.
That is his best play of this game for me. This one, they have to like pre-rotate because I don't know what the fuck they're doing on this possession defensively. So
because they
balls.
bring the wing in to tag the roller, and he just pops. So now then the low man rotates up to the wing.
Yeah, you're right. That's what's happening. So I'm guessing, and this is probably me being like seeing like white European guy thinking like, oh, this guy can shoot. I'm guessing that this guy is scouted as a
Pick and
shooter.
pop potential.
It's like a pick and pop guy. Yeah. And throughout the game, like later in the game, like you'll see like he gets to some pick and pop moments, but I'm guessing that this guy is scouted as a pick and pop, which means he has to come out here. He has to come out here. And then the way that you would go about defending this, I think, is you would have the ball handling defender kind of try and go out here if he could. They have the big go out and try and close out, but it's a long closeout, and that's a wide open shot. But again, doing a great job of hitting the wide open ones, but hitting wide open ones.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like how like all of these made threes have been very, very open.
Except for the step back. And I think the step back was actually a 2, if I remember right. They actually counted it as a 2.
Really? Okay.
I think his foot was on the line.
So this one, Ayayi filters to the corner with him. I like that he's communicating on the back line here. Does a great job talking. You can see he's letting his teammates know what's going on at the top. He knows he's the low man. He tags in. It's a foul. Look, do I think this is a foul? I don't know. I guess he's leaning forward a little bit.
Foundationally, you can work with that at the next level. Like as he gets stronger, sees it, all of that. Like you can live with that. You can work with that.
100% agree. That's fine though to me. Like that's all. I know he gets hit with the foul, but that's a good play. So there's our man, the pick and pop guy, shooting a 3. Finally. So this is evidence that Nanterre's defensive strategy was based on scouting there, right? This one, just awesome offensive rebound. Awesome. Yeah. Understands that Ayayi's a guard. By the way, they're defending him with a guard. It's worth noting. Joel Ayayi, I would guess, is like 6'4.5" in shoes. So probably like 6'3" without shoes. Defending Risacher with a guard. Because that's what you can do because of how skinny he is at this point.
Sure.
Goes up off of 2 feet,
2 feet
above the rim, put back. Again, 2-foot jump though. This one
dribbled himself into a tougher shot.
Yeah, I don't know why he did that. So this one, misses this. This is just a shoot.
Yeah, shoot.
And what I want to call out here though is look at his feet. His 1 foot pointed that way, 1 foot like kind of pointed this way. The footwork, the feet are just not ready to shoot.
Sure.
Here. Like that's why he doesn't shoot. There are just like some small minor things to clean up with like shot prep. Right?
Sure.
Just some minor things that he's got to clean up there. But the result is that he shoots himself into a tougher shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what's bad. This one, weak side defender, kind of gets face cut, gets out to Ayayi. Good closeout, contests. That's a tough spot for him because he's 2-on-1 or 1-on-2 there, right? So he is, when this guy kind of comes over to help, he's responsible now in some respect for both of these guys, right? So you get the help. He kind of gets face cut here. You'd probably just like to see Nanterre just like hit the guy face cutting in front of Risacher, but big, hands in front. I think Borg's defender here does a good job of like staying big in front. But I love this ground coverage. This is the thing that I think
ground there,
is really important for him defensively and why he had a shit game off the ball defensively in this game. There are tools here to work with, like absolutely. In a serious way. There are very real tools here to work with. He's going to go from basically the restricted area here, just like one step out of the restricted area, to a way long, like heavy closeout here. Remember we said earlier with like Ayayi, that was a super long closeout and he couldn't quite get there for the Risacher jump whenever Risacher relocated up to the wing. Risacher is big enough to be able to get there and long enough and covers ground to be able to close out to that wing in a real way. So those are really good signs. And then you get, him going out in transition here as well. Makes the shot in transition. Great little run out. Love it. Next up, he's weak side corner here. Great way to read the offensive glass.
I was going to say that one is more impressive than the one we showed earlier because you can see him with his eyes up reading the ball off the rim and anticipating where it's going to bounce because he's coming baseline. He's reading the trajectory of the ball and he starts moving to where the ball bounces off of. So I thought this was really, really good example of that.
Really, really good ball tracking here. Does a great job getting that extra possession there. And then kick out.
Be ready to shoot.
Right. That's it. And this ends up being a turnover. I think they might have called a travel, something like that. I can't remember what they called.
Or he just stepped out of it. And like, that's another, just like, it's two poor decisions. One, to turn down the shot. Two, then to drive into this. And then he's just not strong enough to take the bump.
Right. And so like, here's the thing. So I think he thinks he's prepped here. Right.
I would agree. Yes. That he's not, but he thinks he is.
He thinks he's prepped here. He is not.
No. He's standing almost straight up.
And part of it is that he takes these shots off the hop. That's like the thing. Like he likes to shoot off the hop.
Yeah.
But look at how skinny that base gets.
Yeah. That
on the hop.
That footwork makes no sense on an open catch and shoot like that.
No sense at all. I hate everything about that. That is terrible. And like, so we're at 5:30 now. I want to go back and like look at like some of these other catch and shoot threes, right? Because I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? So this one I think is one. Look at the base here when he catches, right? This is the earlier one.
Yeah.
Nice wide base on the relocation. Again, the foot is flaring, right? Like the left foot's flaring out this way, but good wide base, gets his legs underneath. You get a good bend there, like generating power up through his lower half, right? Drills the three. This one, let's see here. This is
all those ones in the second quarter.
Yep. So this one here, this is a miss. Again, nice wide base. Gets to the shot, right? Misses it, but better base. This one catches, hops into the skinnier base here, right? To me, his footwork's just really sloppy, is what this is telling us.
And I think it's when he's at a standstill. I don't think he's comfortable catching and shooting from a standstill. Like he almost looks better when he's relocating into it. But when he's at a standstill, he wants to do something. His feet look a little bit close on that one.
Close there on the pull up, right? Next, this is another one.
That was the turnover.
Well, I think he's kind of like never really ready to shoot this one, right? Maybe he is. Let me see.
No, I think he was putting it on the deck.
He's
right
thinking
away.
Drive there. Yep.
Yeah.
But like, you know what? Against NBA defenders, this is a tell, right? Sure. Like he never gets into the hop here, right? Like typically with his shot, he's tried to get into the hop beforehand. This one, because he doesn't get into the hop, it's very obvious that he's driving, which makes it an easier closeout for Begarin there to be able to get there.
This one is
next.
That's the corner relocation.
Yep.
And was his base better?
Yeah, I would say yes to this.
I think it's when he's actually moving and relocating is when his base gets better.
And for what it's worth,
standstill.
when I saw him at Hoop Summit last year, I thought his footwork was super sloppy with his shooting as well. And the result of that tended to be that the trajectory was very flat on the shot as opposed to anything. But yeah, this is a better base, I would argue.
Well, when he was going through his bad shooting slump, I went and looked at all of his attempts, and majority of them were short, which I chalked up to a 18-year-old just being a little bit tired in a pro league, but maybe it has more to do with the footwork than it does with that.
Yeah, so I think he misses this one, right? No, he drills this one. But I was going to say this is better footwork.
No, I think this looks okay, and this is from a standstill, but he has to move because the pass isn't good.
Yep. So look at that. Bent legs. Lower half involved.
And
right?
for people that are going to say, like, my feet are not pointed at the goal shooter. Like, I don't point my feet. I do on free throws, but whenever I shoot jump shots, like from the 3-point line, my toes are turned because it opens up my body to get my elbow where I want it. So I don't think his feet being turned, both of them at the same angle. What you were pointing out earlier was his left foot on an angle and his right foot not on the same angle.
Correct. I don't really care if you're like a sideways shoot, like Steph Curry, has his feet pointed, at a 45-degree angle. It's whatever. It's like you want things to be pretty consistent though.
Agreed.
Throughout. And that's where I think we're seeing here that, Risachers tend not to be very consistent. This one here. So this is again, like what we considered the best play of his game, right? Look at how he takes it off the hop.
Yep.
Which is why Ayayi blows by, right? To speak to that other possession. And now drives, finishes. This one, again, very narrow base. And this is not the one that we stopped on.
No.
But look at how narrow the base is.
Yeah.
Here, right?
Yep.
And then like the legs are like
this one's weird.
Way screwed up through his lower half here. Like way screwed up through his lower half here. Bad rhythm, like ball goes in. Like, here's the thing. I think he has real touch. Yeah. Like every time I watch him, I'm like, I think this guy like has very good touch on the shot. But it's just very inconsistent. Like the whole thing is just very, very inconsistent. It feels like mechanically, which is going to lead to inconsistent results right now. And then this is not the one we stopped on either. So this is the one where we have no fucking idea what his feet look like there. And then this is the one that we ended on a second ago. And just like terrible, way too skinny with the footwork there. Look at his feet, like way too tight there.
I think he travels like he I think his right foot's his pivot foot, and then he picks it up, and not great.
So very, very sloppy with the footwork. I think is where we're going with this one. Like very, very sloppy with the footwork. Very concerning for him as he like continues to move up levels. He has to clean that up in a big way moving forward. And somebody asks here in the comments, T shouts out, is this correctable though, right? Yes, I would say yes. The fact that he does it better off of movement actually is like a positive to me. I like the fact that it's better when he's like kind of relocating across the 3-point line.
Agreed.
Because those are the ones that are harder to make.
Yeah.
I think that, yes, it is correctable for him to be able to get to this.
I will say I felt like I had way less rhythm in a true just stand there, catch and shoot than I did if I was relocating. I would much rather like have a little bit of movement into my shot. And so it's correctable, but like sometimes throughout your years, you develop these habits that are part of your flow and your rhythm. And it's not always easy to get that in a different area. So just kind of watch his true, just stand still, catch and shoot. Cause he's going to be asked to do that. He's going to have to do that in his role.
So for people who don't know, Bryce played 2 years in American, started 1 year.
Yeah. And then I got hurt. So yeah.
Started 1 year, made like 36% from three.
Yeah.
Like real shooter
on an NCAA tournament team. Like we went to the NCAA tournament. So
yeah.
Lost, but went.
Yeah, played Tennessee, right?
Our first year, and then Villanova my second year. Yeah.
Yeah. So here you're gonna see Risacher like chasing behind the screen. I think he just got clipped on this one, like in a
Yeah.
big way. I have not loved his screen navigation this year, to be honest with you.
So I liked it early on, and then I really wanted to watch in this game to see if maybe it was, that's not good. That's not good fundamental foundational screen navigation. So
Yeah, just like doesn't even remotely get over the top there. And then they kind of try to peel it, it looks like, so he doesn't try and get the contest from behind. But again, this is Gian Begaron, who was a second round pick of Boston a couple years ago. He drills this one. Next up, you see Risacher there. And again, what do we get into? What are we going to say, Bryce?
ooh.
I did not think your response was going to be, ew.
Look how close his feet are.
Yeah, just the feet are too close. They're too narrow. Like he has so much work to do in terms of just like consistency of base.
He does. And I like the stuff up top. And you're right. I think he has nice touch. A lot of his makes pop the net, but he's got to figure the feet out. You're 100%.
The feet are the thing that drive me crazy about him. And it drove me crazy last year at Hoop Summit too. It was different every single time, it felt like. This one again, guarding Begaron, just like totally falls asleep off the ball here. Gives up the three.
Too far.
So yeah. So ball comes out, screen, sinks in, gets flat-footed there. That's going to be a tough closeout when you get flat-footed, because then you have to get started again. Yep, not very good. This one, reversal back.
So it's from a standstill.
Off the hop. I don't love the way he turns his body, just to be honest with you.
Yeah, sure.
And it doesn't feel this turned all the time to me either.
Sure.
Maybe this could be like a power generation thing where it like gets later in games. He feels like he has to like really kind of sink into it and like kind of turns to sink into it a little bit. That's plausible to me. But yeah, like look at, like the legs are like turned so far that way, toward the baseline there, that it just feels, I don't know. He kind of brings it back into alignment though, doesn't he?
He does. No, initially. And at the end of the day, like I will say, he's in a playoff game. His team's down by 2 and he drills a 3 to put him up 1
totally
with 3 minutes to go. So like
it looks like the base is bad here, I think, but I think it's because the camera is a little bit farther. I think that he's probably shoulder width there, like exactly shoulder width apart.
I thought it looked more fluid and rhythmic on this one when just watching it live. I thought the base anyway.
Agree. So this one now lifts to the wing. That was the wild 3-point attempt that, has a real size advantage here. I get why he thinks getting to the step back is a little bit of a better move. But and I like this move. Like I like the jab step crossover move, getting to the step back. But Bryce, what are we gonna say?
Yeah,
that's too narrow again. It's too narrow. He's got a lot of work to do with footwork.
Yeah, I mean he goes this turnover 2 to end the game.
Yeah, this wasn't a great close. Goes out here, relocates to the corner.
He's just not strong. I mean, he's just not strong enough. Like you've got to be able to play through the contact.
And I'll say this, like Yuan Begaron, like that guy that, again, got drafted by the Celtics. This is what he is a physical dude. Like that's always been his thing. Like he is a powerful physical dude, but that's who he's going to go up against in the NBA. Like that's actually like a rep against an NBA caliber athlete at the very least, in terms of the game. Like we'll see where his game develops to by the time he's 25. but like athletically, that's a strong, powerful athlete that he'll go against. And he's just not strong enough to be able to hold up to that and withstand that level of contact.
Yep.
And then this one here, going to grab the rebound, transition. They're down 5 and just like completely out of control.
Yeah.
Just
bad decision.
Completely out of control. So now that we've kind of jumped through all of that and taken like 35 minutes or whatever it was to do that. Again, I like that he had 28 points. I like that he took advantage of the open threes that he was given. I think that the footwork is just way inconsistent right now. Like way, way, way inconsistent, and needs like drastically needs to like overhaul that piece of his game. And for what it's worth, compared to where it was last year at Hoop Summit to where it is now, I think it actually is better. When I saw him, like you didn't get to see him in that environment. Yeah. I will say that I think it was better.
Okay. That's good.
But it's still a ways. Like it's still a ways away.
And it's so important for someone like him because of the archetype and the role he's going to have. Like this is a true 3-and-D wing forward off ball player who has to be a high level floor spacer because yes, he can cut an offensive rebound and get out in transition sometimes and all that. But at the end of the day, his offensive skill, the number one thing he's going to provide is floor spacing, knocking down shots. And so he has to be able to do that in catch situations, relocation situations, hopefully eventually. Like he's not gonna be able to knock down shots off screens if he doesn't get the footwork figured out first. So it is very, very important for him that he is consistent with his footwork and knocking down open shots, knocking down shots in general.
It's exactly right. Defensively, rough game defensively, but playoff game in France, professional league. Nanterre is like a really good team as well over in France. Like this is a tough environment. The fact that he scored 28 points is a absolute like unequivocal positive. This is a good game for him, even though it felt like we kind of nitpicked it to death in terms of like what the evaluation is. We do that because we want to explain why this didn't like move the needle for us. Yeah, in a real way.
Sure. No, and that's what like. Again, it reaffirmed where I have him, which was awesome to see. And he's shot the ball better over the last 5 or 6 games now after the long slump. He's at like 40% from 3 over a 50+ game sample size, like you said, in a pro league, playing most of the year as an 18-year-old. But, people are going to go, well, why is he not number 1? Why is he not automatically above Steph Castle or, whoever, all of the guys that we have him in the same tier with. And some of those reasons are why. So it's good to point out the flaws along with all of the positives. And we're going to do it with all of these guys. And I think that's why the tiers within this tier, everything can look so different. Because for everybody who says Risacher doesn't do this, I can say, yeah, well, Steph Castle doesn't do that. Or Ron Holland doesn't do that. Or Matas can't do this, whatever it is. And again, that's just part of what we do.
Yeah, and we'll get into a lot of like I'm gonna have players on the show. Like I think tomorrow or the next day, I'll have an interview where I break down tape with Alex Sarr.
Nice,
right?
Yeah,
and you'll see like we kind of break down like a lot of positives for Sarr, talk about some of the negatives with Sarr too. The way I did those interviews is like the 10 plays, right? And we just broke down more than 10 plays with Risacher, right? So it's not going to be quite as in depth as that, but it's with Alex, so like you get to hear what he's thinking instead of, just what Bryce and I are thinking. And that's ultimately a little bit more valuable.
Sure. Absolutely.
When breaking down prospects. So keep it locked for that. Hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button over on the podcast feed, 5-star ratings. They're fantastic. Do those. Hit the like button if you're here in the YouTube channel. It really helps grow the show. Anything else like Bryce? What do you got going on? What's going on? What's up?
Not much. Just honestly, Sam, it was a weekend. The family has been sick. I've been doing cleaning up messes and doing laundry and all sorts of stuff all weekend. So it was, and now I'm just waiting for it to get to me. Like it's ran through 3 of the 5 of us. So I'm just waiting for me to catch it now. So
it's coming.
That's the worst feeling.
Bryce, I'm up to 117,000 words in the draft guide.
That's a lot of words.
We are closing in on being done, which is fantastic. It will probably actually be done this week.
Nice.
I have John Mabo and Tristan Newton coming
Nice.
up, AJ Mitchell and KJ Simpson. Those are my next 4 that I have to do. Looking forward to that. And we'll be back, I think, on Tuesday, probably in the US, Wednesday morning. If you're listening to your podcast feeds, we will do some reactions, I guess, to game 1 of Boston and Indiana, because tomorrow's a day off.
Yep.
And then we will do, some off-season previews. That'll be the plan.
Cool.
And maybe a little bit of draft stuff. I don't know. We'll see what I make Bryce do for this one, as he sits there just waiting for illness to come his way. Yep. So, Bryce, okay, that's all I've got. Perfect. Until next time, we'll talk soon.